For 4 years, a young elephant refused to sleep anywhere except beside one specific spot, outside his keeper's house, touching his trunk to the ground every single night, like he was protecting something precious. But when workers finally dug up that exact location, what they found buried there explained everything and revealed a devastating secret that had been hidden for 50 years. But why had this elephant spent 4 years guarding the grave of a relative he never met? The morning fog rolled across the Thepakadu elephant camp like a gray blanket, covering everything in the Mudumalai Tiger Reserve. Mahood Rajan Kumar wiped the sweat from his face, even though the air was cool. He had worked with elephants for 30 years, just like his father and grandfather before him. But nothing in all those years had prepared him for Kanan. Every single evening, the young bull elephant did the same strange thing. He would finish his work hauling logs through the forest. He would help the guards patrol the paths. Then, when the sun went down, Kanan would walk to the small wooden house, where Rajan lived at the edge of camp. The elephant would lower his huge body to the ground right beside the building. He would curl his trunk under his chest and stay there until morning. Rain could pour down on him. The hot summer sun could bake the earth. Winter nights could turn freezing cold. Kanan never changed his routine, not once in 4 whole years. This behavior started when Kanan turned 12 years old. Before that, he had slept with the other 15 working elephants in the big clearing where they all rested together at night. The guards would watch over them there. The elephants would stand close to each other, touching trunks, rumbling quietly to each other in the darkness. But something changed in Kanan. Something pulled him away from his herd every single night to keep watch over one specific spot of ground that measured about 3 feet across. Dr. Priya Sharma came to the camp once every month to check on the elephants. She was an animal doctor who had seen many strange things in her career. But Kanan's behavior puzzled her. She had stayed up late many nights just watching him. The elephant would lie completely still for hours. Then his trunk would reach out and gently touch the same spot on the ground beside the house foundation. The movement was soft and careful, like he was petting something precious. It was nothing like the way elephants normally touched things when they were curious or investigating. Rajan had tried everything to make Kanan stop. He changed when the elephant ate his meals. He gave Kanan different jobs during the day. He even tried to physically push the elephant toward the sleeping area with the other elephants each night. But Kanan would just wait patiently. As soon as Rajan went inside and closed his door, the elephant would walk back to his special spot. Kanan was not sick. He ate all his food. He did his work perfectly. He was kind to the other elephants and gentle with the humans. Everything about him was normal, except for this one weird habit that nobody could explain. The other Mahouts created their own stories about why Kanan did this. Some said he was guarding Rajan because he loved the man who raised him since he was 5 years old. Others whispered about ghosts and magic, pointing to old legends about spirits in the forest. A few people said Kanan was just strange, that smart animals sometimes did odd things that made no sense. But Rajan knew there was something more. He had noticed how Kanan's breathing changed each night when he settled into his spot. The elephant's chest would rise and fall slowly and deeply, like he was in a trance. Kanan would make sounds so low that human ears could barely hear them, but the other elephants across camp would lift their heads and listen. What scared Rajan most was that Kanan always positioned himself in exactly the same place. His head pointed northeast. His trunk rested against one specific section of ground. His massive body formed a wall between that spot and the rest of the camp, like he was protecting it from danger. Dr. Sharma had tested the soil there, thinking maybe some mineral or underground water was attracting the elephant. The tests showed nothing unusual, just normal dirt found everywhere in this region. They even used special radar machines to look underground. Nothing was there. No caves, no water, no rocks. Nothing that would explain why an elephant would guard that spot for 4 years. Then Kanan started losing weight. Not a lot, but enough that Dr. Sharma noticed during her checkups. He was eating fine. He had no worms or sickness. But something was wearing him down. His eyes, which used to sparkle with life, now looked sad. It was like Kanan was carrying a heavy burden that got harder to bear with each passing month. What was buried in the ground that had held Kanan's attention for 4 years, and why had this discovery remained hidden for so long? The demolition crew drove through the camp gates on a humid September morning. The monsoon rains were finally stopping after months of downpours. Rajan had made special plans to keep Kanan away from camp all day. The elephant would go on forest patrol, a job that would take him far into the hills until evening. Rajan could not stand the thought of Kanan watching as machines destroyed the place he had guarded for so long. But Kanan knew something was wrong. When the mahouts tried to lead the working elephants out for their duties, Kanan planted his feet and refused to move. He spread his ears wide, making himself look bigger. He made loud calls that brought all the other elephants to attention, their trunks lifted into the air, testing the wind for danger. Rajan had never seen Kanan resist like this. After 30 minutes of trying to move him, Rajan made a hard choice. They would have to give Kanan medicine to make him sleep. They only did this in emergencies. Dr. Sharma gave Kanan the shot. Her face looked worried as the elephant fought to stay in his spot, even as the medicine made him sleepy. "He knows," she said quietly to Rajan. "Whatever is there, he has been protecting it. We need to be very careful." The excavation started with a small machine, removing the stones that held up the wooden house. The building was only 20 years old, built when the forest department made the camp nicer, but as the workers dug deeper, they found another foundation under the new one. This one was made of stone and cement that looked at least 50 years old, maybe older. Rajan stood watching, his mind racing through the camp's history. This place had been used for elephant work since the British ruled India. It had been a timber camp before becoming a conservation site. Many buildings had been built here over the decades, each new one built on top of the ruins of the last. The foreman yelled out when his shovel hit something that was not stone or dirt. The workers slowed down, using hand tools now instead of the machine. What they uncovered was a layer of wooden planks made from teak. The wood was old and rotten, but still holding its shape. The planks had been arranged on purpose, forming a rectangle about 6 feet long and 3 feet wide. A crowd gathered around the hole. Mahouts, forest guards, camp workers, everyone sensed that something important was about to be revealed. Dr. Sharma knelt beside the excavation. Her trained eyes already understood what they were finding. "This is a burial," she said, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Someone worked very hard to create this grave." The workers lifted the wooden planks carefully. Under them was a layer of stones. These too had been placed with care, fitted together to protect what was beneath. As the stones came out, the smell of old earth and decay filled the air. Finally, they could see what Kanan had been guarding all these years. Bones. Not human bones, but huge ones that could only belong to an elephant. A skeleton lay curled in the earth, positioned just like Kanan slept every night. Trunk tucked in, legs folded, as if the creature had simply laid down to rest and never woken up. The bones were stained dark brown with age. The skull, though partly broken down, showed features that made Dr. Sharma gasp. "This was a female," she said, pointing to the hip bones and the smaller, more delicate shape of the skull. "And look here." She showed them several bones with signs of old injuries, breaks that had healed while the animal was still alive. This elephant lived through terrible pain, but survived for years afterward. These bones tell a story. Rajan felt his throat tighten as puzzle pieces started falling into place. He called for the camp's oldest worker, a 78-year-old former mahout named Murugan. The old man arrived leaning on a walking stick, his wrinkled face becoming even more lined as he looked into the hole. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "Amertham," he whispered. "They buried her here. I had forgotten. It has been so long." But as the excavation continued, workers discovered something else, buried with the calf. Something that would reveal an even more devastating truth about why this young elephant had died, and why Cannon's vigil had been so desperate. Dr. Sharma and her team worked carefully, documenting and removing the bones. Then one of the workers called out from deeper in the hole. His shovel had hit something metal, a sound that did not belong in undisturbed earth from the 1970s. They cleared the dirt away slowly, revealing a rusted iron chain. It was thick and heavy, the kind once used to restrain working elephants. But this chain was different. It was tangled around the smaller bones, wrapped tight in a way that made Dr. Sharma's face turn white as she understood what she was seeing. "The chain is threaded through the rib cage," she said, her voice shaking with anger. This calf did not die from birth problems. It was chained while still inside the mother. The mother was restrained so tightly during her pregnancy that the chain placement stopped the calf from growing and moving correctly. Murugan lowered himself onto a nearby rock. His hand shook. The old man's eyes filled with tears as old memories came flooding back. "They chained Amertham during her pregnancy," he said, his voice breaking. "She was considered dangerous when she was expecting. They said her hormones made her crazy, unpredictable. The supervisor ordered her kept in maximum restraint for the full term. We were just boys then, junior mahouts. We did what we were told." The story came out in pieces as more staff members shared what they remembered. In the 1970s, working elephant management in many camps had been brutal. Pregnant elephants were often subjected to harsh restraint, based on wrong beliefs that expecting mothers became aggressive and needed to be controlled through force. The chains would be fastened around the elephant's body in ways that allowed almost no movement, sometimes for months at a time. Amertham's calf had been crushed by the very chains meant to control his mother. The restricted space, the constant pressure on Amertham's belly, the stress chemicals flooding her system from being chained for so long, all had caused the calf's wrong position and death. What the camp authorities had written down as birth complications had actually been a direct result of their own cruel practices. After the calf died, there was an investigation, Murugan continued, his words coming slowly as he dug up painful memories. The animal doctor, who had been called in, someone from the city. He wrote a report condemning the restraint methods, said they had killed the calf as surely as if they had strangled it with their own hands. The report disappeared. The vet was paid to leave and never come back. They buried the calf quietly and told everyone it was natural causes. Dr. Sharma was photographing everything with her camera. Her scientific calm was cracking as the full horror of the discovery settled in. These practices were common across Asian elephant camps in that era, she explained to the staff. We have found evidence of similar abuses at sites throughout India, Thailand, Myanmar. The elephants were viewed purely as work tools, and pregnancy was treated as a problem rather than a natural process requiring careful care. Rajan felt sick as he looked at the rusted chain, imagining Amertham trapped, unable to move freely, while her calf slowly died inside her. He thought of Cannon's nightly watch, the young bull lying over the spot where his uncle had been buried in shame and secrecy. Had Cannon somehow known the truth? Was his vigil a way of witnessing, a refusal to let this injustice stay hidden? The excavation revealed more disturbing details. Beneath the calf's remains, they found traces of quicklime, a chemical used to speed up decomposition and reduce smell. The grave had been designed to erase evidence quickly, to allow the camp authorities to forget their role in the death as fast as possible. But the burial party had also done something unexpected. Someone had placed a garland of marigold flowers with the body. The flowers had rotted away long ago, but they left traces in the soil that Dr. Sharma's tests confirmed. Someone mourned this calf, she said quietly. Someone among the staff defied orders and performed a burial ritual. That is why the grave was so carefully made, why there were wooden planks and stone protection. This was not just disposal. Someone made sure this baby was laid to rest with respect. How would Cannon react when the remains were removed for proper burial? And what would the memorial reveal about elephant memory that would change scientific understanding forever? The reburial ceremony happened 1 week later. Dr. Sharma's team had finished their documentation and analysis of the remains. The Tamil Nadu Forest Department had not wanted to do this at first. They worried about bad publicity for historical mistakes. But Dr. Sharma's passionate arguments about the educational value of acknowledging past wrongs convinced them. Representatives from elephant conservation groups across Asia came. Wildlife scientists, animal doctors, and journalists attended. But the most important guests were the 15 working elephants of Thepakadu camp. They were allowed to gather at the site, a decision that broke the rules, but felt necessary to everyone involved. Cannon stood at the center of the assembled elephants. His position was clearly accepted by the others as appropriate. The remains had been placed in a special box made from sustainable teak, similar in design to how the camp now honored dead elephants. A stone memorial was being built, not hiding what had happened, but clearly stating it. The inscription, written in 3 languages, said, "In memory of an unnamed elephant calf, died 1974. Lost to practices we now condemn. May this memorial ensure such suffering never occurs again." Guarded faithfully by Cannon, 2019 to 2023, who would not let us forget. As the box was lowered into a new grave in a memorial area away from where the old building stood, something remarkable happened. The elephants began to make sounds, creating a chorus of rumbles and trumpets. Wildlife sound experts later studied the recordings and said these matched known elephant mourning behaviors. But there was something more. A pattern in the sounds that suggested the elephants were talking to each other, as if they were sharing something among themselves. Dr. Sharma had set up recording equipment to capture the moment. She was working with Dr. Angela Stoger, a sound expert from Austria who had flown in just for this event. Dr. Stoger's first analysis of the recordings showed something never seen before. The elephants were making infrasound calls that matched patterns previously documented only at elephant graveyards in the wild, where herds would visit the bones of dead family members. They are doing something we have never properly documented in captive elephants, Dr. Stoger explained to the media after the ceremony. They are performing a group mourning ritual. And more remarkably, the pattern of calls suggests they are putting this event into their cultural memory. They are teaching the younger elephants about what happened here. Cannon's behavior during and after the reburial gave the most striking proof of elephant emotion and memory. As the box was lowered, he walked to the grave and placed his trunk inside, gently touching it. He stayed in this position for several minutes, completely still, before stepping back and letting the other elephants come forward if they wanted. Several did, including an older female named Lakshmi, who had been Amurtham's friend decades earlier. But the most emotional moment came when Cannon finally walked away from the grave for the first time in 4 years, without returning to keep watch. He moved to where Rajan stood crying, and gently wrapped his trunk around the man's shoulders. It was a gesture of comfort, of forgiveness, of understanding that the humans present were not responsible for the past, but were making things right now. That night, for the first time since his obsessive vigil began, Cannon slept in the group elephant area with the rest of the herd. Rajan watched from his new temporary house, hardly able to believe that the mystery that had consumed 4 years had been solved. But more than that, he understood they had been part of something profound, the healing of a wound that had been passed down through generations of elephants who remembered what humans wanted to forget. The memorial became a center point for the camp's education programs. School groups visited to learn not just about elephant biology and conservation, but about the ethics of how humans treat animals in captivity. The story of Kanan's vigil was added to training programs for mahouts across India, emphasizing the depth of elephant emotion and memory, and the long-term consequences of poor treatment. Kanan thrived after the reburial. His weight returned to healthy levels. His personality became more relaxed and playful. He developed a close bond with a young female elephant named Priya. The camp staff saw that he seemed to take a protective, almost fatherly role with the younger elephants, making sure they were treated gently, placing himself between them and any situation that seemed stressful. The memorial still stands at Thepakadu today, visited by thousands of people each year. But for those who saw the 4-year vigil and its resolution, the real message is simpler and more profound. Elephants remember, elephants grieve, and elephants teach us that acknowledging past wrongs is the first step toward making sure they never happen again.